Age ain't nothing but a number, right? Try telling that to the following actors who had to nervously face the prospect of filming a heavy-duty makeout session with a co-star 20, 30, 40, or even 50 years older. Sean Connery had an impressive career as a leading man, from his star-making turn as James Bond in 1962's Dr. No, and lasting all the way into the 2000s. In 1999, he starred in the crime caper Entrapment, which left moviegoers taken aback by the love scenes between the 68-year-old Scotsman and his 29-year-old co-star Catherine Zeta-Jones. That 4-decade difference didn't go unnoticed by viewers, as the Deseret News pointed out in its review, Zeta-Jones' romantic pursuit of this guy who could be her grandfather is never believable, although, ironically, the romantic plot is perhaps the least unlikely aspect of Entrapment. While speaking to the press while promoting Entrapment at the Cannes Film Festival, Connery rakishly joked that kissing Zeta-Jones was, quote, a tough job, but somebody had to do it. For her part, Zeta-Jones rated her co-star's kissing abilities as a, quote, 11.5 out of 10. She also dismissed criticism of the age difference by saying, if a partnership works on screen, it does. He's Sean Connery. What can you say? In the 2003 rom-com Something's Gotta Give, Jack Nicholson plays a music exec who's pushing 70, yet still insists on dating women under 30. Or as Roger Ebert wrote in his review, he was basically playing himself. He starts off romantically linked to Amanda Peet, who's 35 years Nicholson's junior, but he then surprises himself when he becomes intrigued by the far more age-appropriate Diane Keaton, who plays Pete's mother. And that's not the only May-December romance in this film. Keaton also becomes the object of affection for a doctor played by Keanu Reeves, who's 18 years younger than Keaton. In an interview with Movie Hole, Reeves described kissing Keaton as, quote, nerve-wracking. He added, kissing someone is pretty intimate, actually very intimate, and your heart always kind of skips a beat before you do that. But with my character, it was okay. Interestingly enough, after the movie was released, reports emerged that Reeves and Keaton also dated in real life.
How great is it for you that I'm not intimidated by your brilliance?
2008's The Whackness is a movie that's as odd as its title. It's a twisted coming-of-age tale about a teenage marijuana dealer who's trying to earn money for his college tuition. He's got issues, which are being treated by an eccentric psychiatrist played by Sir Ben Kingsley, who happily accepts payment in the form of weed. One scene features the Oscar-winning actor enthusiastically making out with a young woman he meets randomly who's played by none other than Mary-Kate Olsen, 42 years his junior. In an interview with People magazine, Kingsley insisted that while shooting the scene, his co-star was, quote, completely in charge. Olsen shared some details with People, revealing, we shot it at 3 o'clock in the morning, and so everyone was a bit delirious anyhow. He was so professional about it and made me feel so comfortable. He said, anything you don't feel comfortable about, let me know. You lead me. When Access asked Kingsley if he thought the scene would generate controversy, he replied, I'm sure it will. The 2013 romantic drama Third Person tells the story of 3 interconnected relationships. One of them involves famed author Michael, played by Liam Neeson, and his much younger lover, a writer named Anna, played by Olivia Wilde. Neeson was born in 1952, while Wilde joined this mortal coil in 1984, and their 3-decade age gap is intrinsic to the film's plot. Wilde not only kisses her co-star, she also strips for him in a scene in which she drops her robe while standing outside his hotel room. Wilde discussed this moment during an appearance on The Late Show with David Letterman, as she explained that she also had to run down a flight of stairs. As she put it, not only did I have to do it again and again and again, but this was a scene in which I was running down stairs naked, which no one should ever do on camera.
There's things that no one should see. The body does things that, you know.
But people are looking at your stuff.
Yeah.
Woody Allen has a penchant for casting vastly younger actresses as the love interests for the characters he plays. That holds true when it comes to characters in his films that are played by other actors. This was the case in 2014's Magic in the Moonlight, in which Colin Firth plays a stage magician who falls in love with a supposed psychic played by Emma Stone. Firth is nearly 30 years older than Stone, who, as it happened, was also a huge fan of some of his earlier movies. As she told the Daily Beast, I've seen Love Actually about 18 times. I've seen Bridget Jones too many times now. She also made sure to add, my mother absolutely does love Colin, I will say that. Which prompted Firth to quip, you're not the only person whose mother loves me. We imagine it must be at least a little awkward to kiss your parents' crush, but somehow Stone and Firth made it work.
I had a good time, she had a terrible time.
I had a terrible time. With him, ugh.
Jeff Bridges won a lead actor Oscar for his performance as broken-down, alcoholic country singer Otis Bad Blake in 2009's Crazy Heart. At the core of the film is his tentative romance with a young reporter played by Maggie Gyllenhaal, who's 28 years younger than Bridges. While the age gap was significant, it was one of many differences between the characters, and it reflected the unusual bond that formed between them. As Gyllenhaal put it in an interview with Under the Radar, often I think people are attracted to other people who are not always only good for them. I've been attracted to people who were terrible for me in all sorts of ways and worked through it sometimes and not worked through it other times. And I think that's really human and really real, and I think that's part of why the movie is so good, because they are unlikely lovers. On Game of Thrones, Littlefinger, as played by Aidan Gillen, spent his life in love with Catelyn Stark. But when she was killed during Westeros' deadliest wedding reception, he eventually transferred his romantic desires to Lady Catelyn's eldest daughter, Sansa. However, he ultimately married her off to psychotic sadist Ramsay Bolton, resulting in a downright horrific wedding night. The 28-year age difference between Turner and Gillen wasn't a deal-breaker for some fans. In a 2015 interview with Entertainment Weekly, Turner admitted that she didn't understand why some viewers had been hoping for a Sansa-Littlefinger romance after a scene in which he kissed her. As she put it, "That was really weird, actually. When the kiss happened, my Twitter exploded with, ew, that's disgusting. And like the next day I got a ton of tweets going, oh, they should be together. Aidan has a daughter who's like a year younger than me. Game of Thrones, they love that stuff." Viewers of the Netflix thriller Ozark likely didn't see it coming when Wyatt Langmore, played by Charlie Tahan, and Darlene Snell, played by Lisa Emery, wound up hitting the sack together. Darlene is old enough to be his grandmother, after all. Emery was born in 1952, while Tahan was born in 1998, and a difference of 46 years is certainly nothing to sneeze at. According to Ozark showrunner Chris Mundy, the idea to have Darlene and Wyatt hook up was first introduced by one of the show's writers, though everybody initially dismissed it. As he recalled on the Post-Play Ozark podcast, I was like, remember that thing you said? And everybody just looked at me like I was losing my mind. Ultimately, Mundy admitted that the twist was his favorite part of the season. Ozark viewers weren't the only ones shocked by this development. As Mundy revealed, when I first called Charlie Tahan to tell him, just want to let you know what your storyline for the season's gonna be, he laughed for a solid 3 minutes straight, which is a really long time over the phone. It was awesome. When discussing young actors kissing older co-stars, it's impossible to ignore the 1971 comedy Harold and Maude. It stars the baby-faced Bud Cort as Harold, a young man who has a bizarre obsession with death and attends funerals of people he doesn't know. That's how he meets Ruth Gordon's Maude, an eccentric 79-year-old with a passion for life, and they then become romantically involved. When Cort was cast, he was just 20 years old. His co-star, meanwhile, was 75. If you don't have a calculator or pen and paper handy and don't feel like doing the math in your head, that's an age difference of a whopping 55 years. Harold and Maude was initially a critical and commercial flop, though its reputation would eventually grow significantly. As producer Charles Mulvihill told Peter Biskind in his book Easy Riders, Raging Bulls, "You couldn't drag people in. The idea of a 20-year-old boy with an 80-year-old woman just made people want to vomit. If you asked people what it was about, ultimately it became a boy who was f***ing his grandmother." Nevertheless, Cort and Gordon wound up bonding and remained good friends until her death in 1985. As he recalled to The Guardian, "That was one of the most important friendships I've ever had. She was a great woman."
I couldn't imagine a lovelier farewell.
The 1954 classic rom-com Sabrina centers around a love triangle between the title character, played by a 24-year-old Audrey Hepburn, and two men played by William Holden and Humphrey Bogart. Bogart was 53 at the time, a full 29 years older than his co-star. as Edward Z. Epstein wrote in his book Audrey and Bill, a romantic biography of Audrey Hepburn and William Holden. The makeup and hair departments labored mightily to produce a believable leading man for a leading lady young enough to be his daughter. According to Epstein, Bogart was feeling insecure about his age, and he was aware of his own physical shortcomings during the production. It didn't help matters that Holden, whom Bogart dismissed as a, quote, matinee idol, had his hair dyed blonde, while Bogart now required a toupee to manufacture the illusion of hair. Some people working on the film, in fact, remarked that Hepburn looked like she could even be Bogart's granddaughter. So, to make it easier for audiences to believe that Hepburn could really be attracted to the much older actor's creased visage, filming Bogart reportedly required a bit of trickery, as Epstein described it. The lighting and camera angles were as carefully contrived as a Swiss watch movement. Gary Cooper was in the waning days of his time as a Hollywood leading man when he starred alongside Audrey Hepburn in the 1957 romantic comedy Love in the Afternoon. The movie is about the relationship that develops between a long-in-the-tooth playboy and a young woman in her 20s. Helmed by Sabrina director Billy Wilder, Love in the Afternoon once again paired Hepburn with a significantly older on-screen love interest, as Cooper was 28 years her senior. That substantial age difference led to a bit of hand-wringing from the studio. In order to avoid moralistic disgust, Wilder attempted to handle the matter delicately by keeping the scenes between Cooper and Hepburn as chaste as possible and letting audiences fill in the blanks in their minds. So worrisome was the age gap that Cooper's line, "I can't even get to first base with her," was reportedly dubbed in after the fact so that audiences could rest assured that Hepburn's character hadn't been deflowered. Meanwhile, the film's American version concludes with narration announcing that the characters had gotten married so as to avoid speculation they were living in sin. Check out one of our newest videos right here. Plus, even more Nicki Swift videos about your favorite stars are coming soon. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell so you don't miss a single one.